Hey, what's up? It's your girl Neek, and you're tuned in to Neek at Night. And today we have a very special guest here with us again to answer some questions about Diddy, this arrest, and we're going to go over his indictment. Now, I did a separate video where I reacted to the press conference. In this video, I'm just going to go over the document that they talked about in the press conference. And I have an attorney, Dmitry Shaknovich, with me today, who is going to answer some of you guys' questions that you may have. We're even going to go over the bail proposal that his attorney is proposing to the court, which includes a proposal where he surrenders not only Diddy's passport, but his children's passport, and so much more. So if you have any questions about Diddy, this arrest, I want you to put them in the comment section with the letter Q in front of your question so that we're able to distinguish what's a question and what's a comment. So put Q and then your question, and we're going to have Dmitry go over and answer some of them. So now we're going to bring Dmitry up, and he also has a YouTube channel where he talks about these things as well on his channel. So definitely check him out. If you look at the ticker along the bottom, it has his YouTube, all of his information and everything like that. So let's give Dmitry a warm welcome as we talk about this Diddy case. Okay, so we're going to go and start out. Well, I'm going to start out with giving you guys some of the information as it pertains to the indictment. But before I go over the indictment, is there any questions that some of you guys may have before I start reading off the paper? They said, hey, Dmitry, thank you guys for the compliments. So Shay wants to know, how many years in prison is he actually facing?
Oh, well, I mean, look, the case just started today, right? The indictment was unsealed. They're saying more charges may be brought. I don't know if he'll go to trial, if he'll take a plea. There's just no way to answer that in any real way. But in federal court in the Southern District of New York, the conviction rate is very high. Southern District of New York is really the top prosecutor's office in the country. They prosecute all the big cases, all the big terrorism cases, all the big government-related cases, all the big foreign national cases. So the smart money says he'll be convicted here. What he's facing depends on how, when, and under what circumstances.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Consuela says, with the property being in his children's name but owned by the company, can it still be taken from them?
So this is a criminal case, right? Primarily, the relief here isn't taking his property or taking his money. That's in civil cases. However, in criminal cases, there are things like forfeiture, right? Which basically means that you surrender the ill-gotten gains of your conduct, right? I don't know what that'll be here. But if there's some evidence showing that he moved around property to hide it, right, from collection on a judgment, from the government, from forfeiture, from a lawsuit, from an indictment, then more often than not, in a case like this, the government will figure it out and try to seize it or in some way garnish it, right?
All right. Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm going to take a couple more questions in just a second. Keep your questions coming. I'm definitely going to keep your questions for Dmitry later and everything like that. But first, let's go over some of the indictment, because some of you asked what exactly was he charged with, and let's look that over right now by looking over the indictment. So if you look, it's a 14-page indictment. I'm not gonna read word for word the whole entire thing, but I'm just going to kind of skim through it, and let's talk about the pertinent parts that are important. So the first count is racketeering conspiracy, and that is the first count that the grand jury charged in this case. And it says, for decades, Diddy basically abuse, threaten, coerce women and others around him to fulfill his hanky-panky desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Diddy relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, amongst other crimes, hanky-panky, trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Diddy is the defendant, operated his business headquarters at various times in Manhattan and LA under a variety of U.S.-based corporation entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. It says corporate entities in Combs' business included, amongst other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, and an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and a media company. It says that at all times relevant to this indictment, Diddy, the defendant, engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and it included hanky-panky. As part of his pattern of all of this, Diddy manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of extracurricular hanky-panky activities with male commercial workers. Okay. At times that Diddy and others acted as at his direction, made arrangements for women and commercial hanky-panky workers to fly to Diddy's location. He ensured participation from women by, amongst other things, obtaining and distributing, performance or party enhancers and controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support and threatening to cut off the same and using intimidation and violence. Okay. It says, It says, in or around 2009 and continuing for years, he assaulted women by, amongst other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects, and kicking them. These were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at a LA hotel in March 2016. So this part right here talks about the Cassie situation where he beat her down. It was on surveillance. And then it says that he tried to bribe one of the workers to not talk. Now, it also goes into talking about how he would use his employees to facilitate some of these things. And it looks like other people are also going to be going down for this as well. They're talking about how he didn't do this alone, how some of his assistants are the ones who orchestrated these hanky-panky parties. And they also talked about how they're continuing to add on charges as they come in and get information. It says that he had 1,000 bottles of lube and baby oil. They recovered AR-15s, and they talked about how, people just was fearful of him. Let's see what his other count in this indictment is. Let me go down. They had these. Okay, so this part right here talks about the freak offs and the baby oil and lubricant. It says, in or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and LA, California law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. It says he subjected his victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse, caused victims to engage in these, and he maintained control over them. Now, in this indictment, they also talk about how he tried to basically get people not to talk. They have recordings of him calling people, trying to intimidate them, trying to get them not to talk. They have video of these parties. They have proof of these parties, and they have a lot of evidence against him, including, like I said, the AR-15s where it had the sawed-off serial numbers and so much more. So I'm going to bring up Dimitri, and if you guys have any questions, we are going to go over them right now. Let's see if there's any that I missed. Girl Next Door says, comparing to details so far from Diddy's case to R. Kelly's or Epstein's, the optics are certainly worse. What's the likelihood that he won't go to jail?
It seems the likelihood's pretty slim, right? I mean, it doesn't take a lawyer or a rocket scientist to figure this out. Clearly, the allegations are severe, they're pervasive, and they lasted across a long period of time, years and decades. So, again, in federal court, there are very few misdemeanors. They don't really have that. Most crimes that are charged that are filed in federal court are very serious, and most end up with jail time attached to them. And I'm assuming this will be no different, just as with R. Kelly and just as would have been likely the case with Epstein.
All right. Good Vibe says, why are they only holding him accountable for things starting from 2000? What about everything he did beforehand?
So it really depends on what you're charging and when you're charging. There are statutes of limitations in place, right, that prevent people from being charged with crimes that date back many, many decades. Crimes such as these are very serious, so the statutes are longer. So we're already going back decades, which is unique. However, beyond that, here you have conspiracy charges, right? You don't have individual act charges. So you have conduct that's tied to one another, and you have charges involving an individual belonging to a group, right? And engaging in a certain pattern. And those things tend to take time. And so these charges are a bit different, but we have laws in place that don't allow people to be charged with crimes whenever, depending on, again, the crime.
All right. Someone says, how long has Sean Combs been involved in said crimes? And I think the question prior to that kind of answered that. If you guys are just coming in and you want to ask a question, you have to put Q in front of it so that I know that you're asking a question and it stands out. Now, before I go to the next question, I'm going to go over his bail proposal from his attorney and get into that really quickly. So right here is his bail proposal. And it's basically an outline of what his attorney wants to set forth and say that they are willing to do in order to get him out of jail. So it says the defense proposes the following bail package: a $50 million bond. It says co-signed by Sean Combs, his mother, his sister, the mother of his oldest daughter, and his 3 adult sons. Secured by the equity in Mr. Combs' residence located at 2 West Star Island in Miami, Florida. The appraised value of the home is about $48 million. And it says the home is unencumbered. In anticipation of the bail hearing on August 20th, 2024, Mr. Combs paid off the remaining mortgage of about $18 million so that the home could be used to secure a bond and be free of a mortgage. Secured by the equity of Mr. Combs' mother's home located at 450 Alton Road. It says Mr. Combs' travel will be restricted to Southern District of Florida and Southern District of New York to attend court, meet with his counsel, and attend medical appointments, which we will address to the court in a separate sealed submission, as well as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only to the extent that his travel to and from New York involves an airport in those districts. Mr. Combs' passport was surrendered to his counsel on April 1st, 2024. His counsel advised the prosecutors of this fact in an email dated the same day. Counsel will provide this passport to a pretrial services It says the passports of the following family members who have already surrendered their passports to counsel after the raids on Mr. Combs' homes includes Janice Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs, Delilah Combs, and Love Combs. And this is part of his proposed bail package. So why would they make his children also surrender a passport if he surrendered his own passport?
Well, because the idea is to ensure that no interests involved with the case, particularly ones that he has a connection to, will in any way flee, right? The idea of a detention hearing really is twofold. Number one, you want to make sure the person comes back to court. And number two, you want to make sure that the person is not a danger to those around him, right? And this attempts to do that, right? So we are all aware, and the court's aware, and all parties are aware that this is a defendant of means. Inevitably, his family has means, right? And so the idea is to show the court, look, we're doing everything we can. If you let him out pending trial, not at the end of the case, but pending trial, we're going to make sure that not only he himself, but members of his family, anybody he's involved with, anybody who may have an interest in the case, doesn't go anywhere.
All right, all right. Let me see if there's any other questions. And I see you guys compliments. Thank you guys so much. Let's see. Somebody said, Dimitri, I like your hair too. Looks like a fresh cut.
Not that fresh, but I appreciate it.
All right. So those of you guys just tuning in, Dimitri does have a YouTube channel. So definitely make sure to check it out. I don't know why my eye is tripping out right now. It is across the screen. If you guys want to check his channel out, let's see if there's any questions. If it doesn't have a Q in front of it, it's going to be easy for me to miss it. So definitely put Q in front. If you guys want to come up, the link is in the chat. Dimitri, did you see his attorney talk about how they had already anticipated this a week prior?
They, I'm sure, anticipated this well before that. I mean, I don't remember if I spoke to you or somebody else, but I mentioned back when his search warrant was executed that this was going to happen. I mean, it's you know, cases like this generally don't not proceed, right? They executed a search warrant, they seized certain information, videos. You could pretty much, I'm sure he knew, and his lawyers, that this was coming down the pike. It just was a matter of when.
Okay. There is a question. Were the women of age? So I'll answer this one. They have not revealed exactly who the women are. They only made obvious that a lot of it was Cassie, because we've seen in her indictment what she alleged, and they referenced it in their indictment. However, they kept the other women kind of to speculation. They haven't revealed who they are, and they're steadily building exactly who these women are at this point in time. Let's see.
Right. I mean, these women are victims, right? And it's the policy of many prosecutors' offices to maintain confidentiality for obvious reasons. So that's another part of it.
Thank you so much. So Boel says, does Dimitri know anything about Kevin Lau's association to the case?
I don't.
Okay. And if some of you guys don't know, Kevin Lau's, it was announced today that he stepped down from his company. So I think that's probably what she's wondering, if it has anything to do with this. All right. So now that the federal case is active, will the civil cases get pushed to the back?
It's possible, right? Civil cases are controlled by lawyers on both sides, right? Criminal cases are controlled by a lawyer on one side and government lawyers on the other side. So it's a little different. Civil cases, both parties can really agree to push a case within reason, right? And this is obviously a reason. So if both lawyers get together and decide that this is the best course of action, which if I was a defense lawyer for him, I would think that it is, then I would agree to do that. Again, judges don't like holding cases indefinitely, staying cases indefinitely. But in a case like this, I think it's warranted, at least to a degree, for now.
All right. Maul says, what does the supplier of the party enhancers for the accusations have to face?
That's actually a great question. It depends really on when and what was provided, right? At what time, with what intent. right? Again, dealing drugs is very different than what we have in this case, right? The level of severity is very different. Now, obviously, if you have a pattern in place, if you have a witness that could say that certain suppliers supply these drugs for purposes of trafficking women or doing something that's far more severe, then that's one thing, right? Generally speaking, you won't have dealers face consequences in the case like this. If anything, they may be used as witnesses, cooperators, corroborators, and so on and so forth.
All right. Shoddy TV says, what are the chances that Diddy's charges will evolve into a RICO?
Look, I mean, RICO is a racketeering statute, and there are racketeering charges here. It really depends. My understanding is that the racketeering charges that were already involved here will suffice. I don't imagine they'll add other charges that are so similar. They may add different charges. That's what they've alluded to. But otherwise, they have racketeering charges. The first charge is a racketeering conspiracy, right? That's the first count in the indictment.
All right. Nisha, they didn't reveal anything about anybody's demise in the indictment that I heard. So I don't know that that is information available. Neek says, are any other celebrities being charged?
I don't believe so. I know that Kid Cudi was named in there somewhere. I know J-Lo was discussed. I don't think anybody else was charged that is a celebrity. But if celebrities are witnesses in this case, then they may be involved that way. And obviously that'll add to the dramatic element of a case like this.
All right. Can the public sue the media for lying to us?
I don't know, but no. You can't really sue the media in this country unless it's something that's maliciously defamatory, which is why celebrities don't sue the media, right? You can't sue the media here unless you can prove, which is virtually impossible, that the media knew it was reporting something false. Not, whether or not they were, but whether you can prove it, which is very, very hard to do.
All right. Dimitri, would you advise Diddy to settle ASAP for how many years with everything you know?
It's not about settlement, right? We're talking about a plea bargain here. He can't buy his way out of this. So you can't settle it like it's a civil case. But it really does depend on the evidence, right? It depends on the evidence not only now, but the evidence that will come out as time passes. Don't forget, again, the case only starts today. It's not like it ends. It only starts. Who knows what will come out at trial? Who knows if there'll be more charges? Who knows if more will come out in discovery? I know that in a case such as this one, there's likely going to be video evidence and other recording evidence, and that's really bad for defense lawyers. So it really depends on the severity of all of that.
All right. So how likely will Young Miami and Daphne Joy be jailed too for their involvement with this case?
Again, when it comes to the parties involved, witnesses involved, other co-conspirators, it will depend on what they knew, how they knew, and what the evidence shows. Right now, it's tough, but it's just early. I mean, there's not much that anybody can say about this because we're so early in the process. We'll see what comes out. Maybe some of these folks that were involved will take pleas and cooperate, and then things will turn really south for them, right? It really depends on the routes that these folks take.
All right. Kay says, since there are racketeering charges against him, when will other suspects be indicted?
They may not be, right? The other folks may be used, as I mentioned a second ago, to strengthen the case against him, right? If the idea is that he is the target here, right? He is the guy they're going after, then you need evidence for that. And typically, particularly in conspiracy cases and racketeering cases, you need folks on the inside, right? That's why the mob went down back in the 90s, right? Because you need folks inside. And so they may use a lot of those people who did bad things because they need to strengthen the case against the primary defendant.
Right. Let's see if I missed any. And is there anything that you wanted to add, Dimitri?
No, I will say that it's really easy to jump to conclusions, but we're so early on in a case like this. We have to really see what the evidence shows. If the evidence shows what folks are saying it'll show, which is a whole lot of video evidence, recordings, then, you know, he's in bad shape. Because when you combine the fact that this is in federal court in the Southern District of New York with some of the best prosecutors in the country, with bad evidence, and the statistics involved, it doesn't look good for him. But again, it's early. It really is early.
All right. All right. Let's see. Is there anybody who wanted to come up and ask a question? The StreamYard link is in the chat. We only have him for a few more minutes, so I just wanted to see if anybody else wanted to come up. Says how much? Okay, so somebody already asked that question. We don't know. It just happened. We don't know how much jail time because we don't know all of the evidence, all of the charges that may come up. Why would you assume that they don't have proper evidence, Victoria? Who said they don't have proper evidence? Where'd you get that they don't have proper evidence? They talked about the evidence that they had. They seized AR-15s with sawed-off serial numbers. They seized evidence of these parties, all of the lubes. They seized recordings of witness intimidation. They have evidence, clearly. I don't know where you got that from.
Well, also, let's remember what the law says. The law says is that you need probable cause to make an arrest. You don't need all the evidence in the case. That will come out later because they will have to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And for that, obviously, you need admissible evidence. But that's not yet.
Right. Not Victoria. Kelly says, can he make bail?
Well, that's what the bail, bond, detention package is designed to address, right? The proposals put forth by his lawyer is designed to make it so that the judge agrees to, under certain circumstances, release him prior to trial.
All right. All right. Somebody's laughing at him seizing the baby oil. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it, unless you guys have anything else. Dimitri, did you want to? He pled not guilty. Let's see if there was anything else that came out. We could peek at a little bit of the press conference. If you guys didn't see it, hold on, let's see. And then we'll be out. Just listen to it, guys. Can you hear it? Can you guys? Can you guys hear it or no? Dimitri, can you hear it?
I heard rumblings of something, but I don't know what.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges.
We're not going
to. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB. which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance.
All right. So that's just a piece of the prosecutor's press conference for his indictment. Again, I did a whole separate video reacting to everything that he said. It sounds like they got a whole lot on him. I don't want to hold Dimitri up too long, but definitely check him out at DShack Law if you guys want to see his YouTube channel, see his videos and things like that. In closing, is there anything that you wanted to say, Dimitri?
No, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. The case is just starting, so I'm sure I'll be back. And I love doing things like this, but what I primarily do is practice law every day in my life for my clients. And so if anybody has any questions, you can find my YouTube tag or hashtag, whatever it's called, down there. And my email, ds@dshacklaw.com, is everywhere. If anybody has any questions, I'm obviously easy and open. Any questions, anything at all, please reach out. Don't hesitate.
All right. And we'll end on that note. Definitely check out my video reaction to the press conference, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And thank you again, Dimitri, for coming on. Until next time. Peace.
Thank you.